Wednesday, January 8th, 2020, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. This afternoon, I want to talk about the subject of gold confiscation. Before I start, just wanted to show you the copper bar that I just bought. I'd never bought a copper bar before. I didn't think you could get one. So I bought a 1 kilo or 1,000 gram bar. There you go. Very nice bar. Copper bar. So how much did it cost me? Well, it cost me just 35 pounds, including VAT. We have to pay VAT on copper in the UK. So I think it's a really good deal. And it's interesting to have a copper bar. I also have one of my favorite silver bars here. It doesn't look very nice, but I've had it for many years. It's a 2.12 kilo bar. You can see there. That's the assay number here. All these holes here that have been drilled, that just shows you that it's been assayed a few times over. I bought this from Gold Investments, this gold bar, many years ago. Gold Investments, of course, have a promo code, maneco 64. They will ship bullion, gold or silver anywhere in the world. If you quote the promo code, they'll give you 0.5% discount on your buying price. You need to, of course, do your homework to see if it's worth buying it from them. They've told me that they ship a lot of maple leaves, for example, to Canada. They ship a lot of gold coins to Brussels, to Belgium, even to Holland. So you need to work out whether it's worth it for you. You need to do your homework, of course. You don't have to go to Gold Investments. It's just that they've decided to give me that promo code. I've had it for over a year now, and it's worked quite well for those who are interested, who haven't bought gold before or silver. It's a family-run business. I know Mike Temple, who started the business. He's semi-retired now, and his sons have taken over, Oliver and Simon Temple. It was founded in 1981 in London, in the city, and they're still there. So it's a reputable bullion dealer. This one, I actually got it from another dealer called Sharps Pixley in London. I'm not sure if Gold Investments do copper bars. You can ask them. And if you're interested, I've got a link to Gold Investments website below in the description of the video. So gold confiscation, well, it's a hot subject. It's a subject that comes up a lot in my weekly live streams. I do a live stream every evening on Sunday, not a set time. In the summer, I do it a little bit later, like around 9 o'clock. In the winter, probably 7:30 or 8:30 p.m. London. Yeah, a lot of people ask about gold confiscation. Of course, the granddaddy of gold confiscations was in 1933 in the US when FDR signed Executive Order 6102 in 1933. So what do I think of gold confiscation? The fact that people are concerned about it just goes to show how gold is important, how all these executive orders or laws that have been passed in other countries haven't been taken off the books. So it is a little bit concerning. But let's look at what happened and what was happening in 1933 and why they did that. Well, first of all, in 1933, gold was money in the US. It was currency. And if you went to a shop and you bought something for $20, you could use your double eagle gold coin, $20 gold coin, or you could use a promissory note, $20 note, a treasury note, or a Federal Reserve note to pay for that. So gold and paper money, a promissory note, they were interchangeable So it was money. The second point I'd make about the situation in 1933 is that the U.S. banking system was in the brink of collapse right when President Roosevelt came into power in March. So he declared a bank holiday for a week. So that was the other thing that was happening. The banking troubles started in Europe a couple years before, and they eventually spread to the US because a lot of US banks had lent money to European banks. So once the European banks started failing, it created a daisy chain, and it eventually arrived on US shores by March 1933. So you need to keep that in mind. So gold was money and currency, and the banking system was in deep trouble. So what FDR decided to do is create the New Deal. And why did he do that? Well, because the economy was in a depression, and he had the idea that government had to intervene. So how would government intervene if it didn't have any money to spend? And at that time, as I told you, gold was money. They couldn't just call Ben Bernanke or Jay Powell at the Federal Reserve and ask them to print another 100 billion. They had to confiscate the gold because they could only spend if they had the gold. So that's why they confiscated the gold. They gave people who brought in the gold $20.67 for an ounce of gold. How did the Treasury actually even leverage all this gold that it confiscated? Well, in 1934, in January 1934, they declared the Gold Act of 1934. That was passed through Congress, and it changed, it revalued the price of gold in dollars from $20.67 an ounce to 35. So what they did is that it gave overnight the Treasury a profit of almost 75%. And the people that had their gold confiscated, they're left holding the bag, so to speak. They're left holding $20.67, while the US Treasury was holding $35. Really great scam. So with those profits, they created the Exchange Stabilization Fund. It helped kickstart the New Deal. So things weren't exactly the same as they're now. Nowadays, very few people even know about gold or even silver. Maybe some of you have seen the videos by Mark Dice, where he goes around with a Snickers bar and a 1 ounce gold coin. And most people took the Snickers bar. They weren't interested in the gold coin or the silver bar. So that's how things are different now. Very few people own gold, I would say. Gold is not used as currency. And if the government needs to increase fiscal spending, they can already do it. Granted that nothing is ever impossible. They could, of course, confiscate again gold from Americans. I think it's unlikely. The other loophole in Executive Order 6102 was for collectible coins, or numismatic as it's called. And why do they give them an exemption? Well, because the Secretary of the Treasury that wrote up the executive order, I think his name was Wooden, he was a coin collector, and he didn't want his gold coins confiscated. So that's the way around it, through numismatic gold coins. I'm not a numismatic specialist. I do have some numismatic coins, but I recommend Lynette Zhang, ITM report. She does numismatics in the States. The other thing I would say is that reading about John Exter, you can Google John Exter, very interesting character. He used to be a banker for Chase Manhattan, for the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. He helped found the Sri Lanka Central Bank in the 1940s. At the time it was called Ceylon. I've read that the way he bought gold in the 60s in New York was through buying UK gold sovereigns. So because they were considered numismatic. So there are ways around it. So to sum up, yeah, governments can do anything. Governments could confiscate your gold again, of course. It has been done in the past. But I don't think it would discourage me if I was in the States. I am in the UK, of course. One thing I would say, they're confiscating your wealth already if you leave a big balance in the bank, let's say $1 million, and you get very little interest on that money. In 10 years' time, that money will only buy maybe $800,000 worth of goods. That's confiscation. So it shouldn't discourage you from protecting your wealth. Some people think maybe storing gold offshore, having a second residence or a second passport will do the trick. Maybe it will, but for very wealthy people, I would say, for multi-millionaires or billionaires that can afford to have their own private jet to go at a moment's notice to get their gold. I mean, I have 2 passports. I have a Italian passport and a Brazilian passport. Would I store my gold in Brazil? Hell no. Even though the Brazilian government, in terms of policing people, is very inefficient, but it's very dangerous as well. It's inefficient, but the rule of law is not administered as well. So you need to think about that. So yeah, of course, if you're a multi-millionaire or billionaire, then yes, there are ways around it. But for the average person, I think you need to do the best you can do and just be careful. What about the UK? Well, in the UK as well, there wasn't gold confiscation, but there was a control of or amount of gold coins you could have from 1966 to 1979. They didn't confiscate your gold, and if you did have gold, you had to declare it. So never confiscated gold in the UK, but in 1973, I think as well, they loosened those controls, and you could still buy sovereigns, but there is a limit of how many you could buy. Right now there isn't, so it's the best time to accumulate, in my opinion. And of course, in many other countries, there is gold confiscation as well. If you have any questions, just ask them in the comment section below. If you're also on Patreon, you can ask me questions and I'll answer the questions for my Patreon members. I do not do special reports for Patreon. It's just a place where people can support the channel through monthly donations, but it gives you a direct link to me through the message board on Patreon. But I'll also try to answer your questions in the comment section below about gold confiscation. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Please share it far and wide. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, think about subscribing. You can also follow me on Twitter, BitChute, Steemit, and DTube. I wish you all a great day. Take care. Bye.